to be honest, when I walked out of there, I was like, yeah, I didn't even think about the situation that I was now in. You don't plan. Nobody plans to be homeless. I think 99% of people that are homeless have never thought they were going to be homeless.
Today's guest started his business Studio Hawk in 2015 when he was 17 and homeless. Since then, he has been in the Forbes 30 Under 30 and named B&T's Entrepreneur of the Year. He has also won the Australian Business Award for Marketing and Innovation and the Best Large SEO Agency at the APAC Search Awards 3 years in a row, and has managed to achieve this all by the ripe old age of 26. Beyond all of these accolades, his heart lies with the Lighthouse Foundation as an ambassador, and he donates all of his speaking fees to combat youth homelessness. Episode 112, Harry Sanders. The One Moment Please podcast.
Yeah.
How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Good. Yeah, doing well.
You've just come back from the States, gallivanting around the globe.
I did. I got back a couple days back. Did a full global trip to Japan, the UK, saw the guys there, doing some acquisition stuff in the US. Trying to keep myself busy, Fiona.
Yeah. You've sort of gone, your story is from homelessness to now you're a millionaire. You're on the Forbes 30 Under 30. Congratulations. Yeah. It's amazing. So I do sort of want to talk to you about how you got from living under a bridge to gallivanting around the world, growing this enormous business that you've got. So how did it all start? How did you find yourself homeless in the first place? Because most people would think that there would be some support net for you in terms of family.
You would think that. So look, homelessness is, especially youth homelessness, is a subject that I think a lot of people don't know very much about, especially in Australia. So I ended up homeless at 17. My mum was going through a lot at the time, and she didn't have stable housing. And my dad was living with his new partner, who decided that she had 2 kids, and she decided that she didn't want baggage, is what she referred to me as. And so Lovely, not very nice. So referred to me as baggage, and basically told me to up and leave. Now, my dad, when he was younger, he was homeless. So, it's a very cyclical thing, homelessness. It's similar to a lot of different kinds of abuse. And so my dad didn't really see a massive issue with it. In fact, if you were to ask him about it today, he would say almost it was like a favor. It was a boon, And in many cases, maybe it was, but so, isn't something you'd wish upon someone. But coming back to that
is interesting. Kind of stuff, I would have thought that someone that was homeless before would have said, I understand the struggles of it over my dead body. Like, that is an interesting mindset for him to go, oh, it was all right for me, so it'll be all right for him.
It is an interesting one. I mean, see, for me, I think that if I had kids, I would never want them to go through that. You know what I mean? But I guess it's different generations, different upbringings, different, my dad is not, well off by any stretch of the word. He's, had a very tough life, and, I'm not really in a lot of contact with him, but I believe continues to lead a very tough life. So it's different circumstances. So he might see that as, character building for me. Welcome to the world. It's crap, enjoy. And it's a very common story. What happened to me is not exceptional in any way, shape, or form. It happens to about 17 kids in Victoria a day that are under the age of 20, 25 that are now on the streets, homeless, because they don't have stable housing for them to go. That's a lot. The emergency wait list for at crisis homelessness, if you're in that age from 12 to 20, I think it's 24 actually, is a 9-month wait for emergency housing. And let me tell you, when we say emergency housing, you will be homed with drug addicts, thieves, all sorts of people. It's not a good situation, but it happens very frequently. It's just something that doesn't get votes, and that's why I am so open to talking about it, whereas I previously wasn't so open to talking about it.
What was the reality that day? You were 17 when that happened.
Yeah.
So what was the reality of sitting down with your dad and his partner and having that conversation to then, and imagine packing a bag and walking out the door? How were you feeling when you're walking out the door?
Well, I wish it was a very nice sit-down conversation. It was more of a
Get out.
bit of a fight. Yeah. And then not a physical fight, though that's the way she wanted it to go. It was very much a fight and then a grab your shit and get out now. It wasn't a, take a bit of time, figure out your plan. So when I walked out that door, Fiona, I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was livid. I didn't really think I had more of a fight or flight response. To be honest, when I walked out of there, I was like, yeah, well, I didn't even think about the situation that I was now in. You don't plan. Nobody plans to be homeless.
Yeah.
I think 99% of people that are homeless have never thought they were going to be homeless.
And what year was this? Because was this pre-mobile phones?
No. I mean, this would have only been 9 years ago now. 17?
Okay.
26.
Well,
yeah,
I'm
9
old,
years
Harry,
ago.
so I don't know.
Yeah, no. This was 9 years ago. So, 2015? Jeez, it's a while ago. And I had a mobile phone. I had a laptop that I had from work, which I'll go into that in a little bit. But that's about all I had. I ended up getting that phone stolen and had to buy another really cheap kind of one of those Chinese, phones. But I mean, again, that's a common misconception. Everyone on the streets has a phone. Everyone, because they're $10 to buy a stolen Chinese phone. You can get a SIM card for $2, and it is the one thing that you cannot go without because it is how you contact people. It is how you call police. It is how you access services. It's how you access literally everything. Of all the things to go without, the phone is one of the things on the very, very bottom of the list. It is a very obtainable, even 9 years ago, piece of technology for pretty much everyone.
So what's your first, you're walking out the door, you've got a backpack on, I'm assuming, and what's your first thought in regards to where am I going to go?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought that far yet. I kind of thought I would head into the city because we were out in, I think it was Sunbury at the time. So I was like, I'm going to get into the city and I'm going to go get some housing. That was kind of my first thought. I was like, dude, I'm a kid. I'm literally 17. I'm a minor. I can walk in and I'm going to get a house. No problems. I think was my naive thought because, I didn't have a rich upbringing. We were quite poor, but I just assumed, hey man, we're in Australia, one of the, richest nations. We're going to have this shit figured out. And no, I walked in and, that's when I realized this is going to be a bit more of a problem than I thought when they came to me and they're like, yeah, we've assessed your situation. Definitely in need of, crisis housing. And we'll let you know as soon as something comes up. Right now, you're looking at about a 6 to 7 month wait. And I was like, whoa, hang on. 6 to 7 month wait. And then I was like, maybe these guys are just crap. So I kept going to different housing places and they kept telling me the same thing. And that's when it started kicking in that I was like, oh no, this is not going to be a bad day situation. This could be like a game over situation.
Why is Child Protective Services, if you're a minor, why are they not stepping in for the homeless youth that are particularly under 18 that are finding themselves on the street?
Great question. I think it doesn't get votes. People aren't really
Isn't
aware
that
of the
their
issue.
mandate?
Yeah, it's their mandate to protect, basically. Child Protective Services are more in events of assault or people that are in houses that are being abused. In many cases, so those are the only people that tend to get support, and we call that, blanking on the term right now, but there's a name for kids that basically go through that, and it's the most horrific. Like an organization like Lighthouse, which is a youth homelessness charity, they are only about 30% government funded last I checked, and the only funding they get is for those kids that have been sexually abused, violently, all the horrific things that you can only imagine in your like not even in movies would portray that stuff. That's the only funding they get for those people. But for other young homeless people, it's not an area that the government really funds.
Well,
They bundle it in as homelessness, not necessarily youth homelessness.
So if you're finding out that all these different organisations are saying 6 to 7 months for emergency housing, how are you then finding your first place to sleep? Like, what do you do? Go up to random homeless people and say, like, show me the lay of the land? Like, what do I do?
Not quite. I kind of, at that point, I don't know, it wasn't until it got dark that I started to go, oh, yeah, this is just going to be an issue. And even then, once it started getting dark, I thought, I'll find like a good place to sleep. I ended up finding a bridge in Preston. And I thought, this is doable. When you're really tired and you first try and sleep on the ground, it feels fine. It's not until you wake up and you're there for a while that you're like, actually, this is freezing. It's cold. I can't sleep. There's noises. So that's what I did my first night. I slept under a bridge. My second night, I actually bumped into another person similar age to me that was also homeless. And then, yeah, kind of what you said, Fiona, I kind of was like, hey, man, this is pretty embarrassing to ask, but, I don't really know what I'm doing. But there's also a bit of a fear factor that you kind of need to be careful that you don't get taken advantage of, because people know you're in a very vulnerable position, and you coming to them and saying, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if that's the best way of doing that. So yeah, he introduced me to some shelters, which they have, which are basically, homeless shelters, and they have a variety of different people in variety different, stages. And this is again where I think there's a big misconception about homelessness. There is so many different types of people that are homeless, right? You see the tip of the iceberg, the people in the city begging, the people that are having mental episodes, that kind of stuff. That's one type of homelessness. But, the vast majority, probably 80% of homelessness, you just don't see. It's kids that are kind of scurrying around, or people that, most people aren't begging. I wasn't begging. Most people aren't. And so when people think about the homeless community, you don't know all those different people. In fact, often you're staying away from a lot of those people.
You're saying that you weren't begging, and it's 6 to 7 months for emergency housing. How are you getting? I mean, you still got to eat. You still got to put money on your phone. I'm assuming it was prepaid and not.
Yeah.
How are you surviving?
Well, okay. So the first couple of days wasn't a big deal. I didn't have any bills, anything to pay, right? The food is actually super easy to get, and quality food. It's always strange to me that people people are always like, how did you get food? There's food everywhere, right? Which is amazing, and that's due to some fantastic work for some fantastic organizations. And people think like, oh, soup, and no, like you can get like Subway sandwiches, you get pizzas, there's amazing food available, and that's phenomenal. So the food situation is fine. You go to different places, there's a lot of food there. Water, same thing. Things that are really hard, you want to shower? Yeah, good luck. That's a really tough one, because you can smell yourself. You stink. You feel disgusting, but you can't find a place. Occasionally, there'll be some gyms that allow homeless people in to have showers. But then again, coming back to my point, it just takes one person to do the wrong thing, and then all of a sudden, they're like, we're not doing showers for homeless people anymore. And so there's a lot of infighting in the homeless community because of stuff like that. And because there's no real alliances, everyone's kind of out there for themselves or at most one other person. So, but that's how I got by. And then there's Centrelink as well, which I'll go into. Now, I had a really rough time with Centrelink because, to share a quick story, and, everyone thinks like, Centrelink's just giving handouts. Look, Centrelink makes their system deliberately really hard for anyone to get money. It takes time to get money. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I believe it's, about 3 weeks. They do back pay you, but it's still 3 weeks before you see a dollar, which is a long time when you need money. But also the way they class you. So I was underage and homeless. So they will give you a sum of money. Now they have two classes for that. There's dependents and independents. So dependents, where you're getting some money, you're kind of homeless with your mum, right? So they're giving you a little bit of money, but they're also giving your mum money. Or there's independent, completely kind of isolated. Now I was independent because I wasn't with either of my parents. But the paperwork they made me sign, I had to get signatures from both my parents to say that I wasn't with them. Now, that's one of the most horrific things I've ever had to do. I had to go to my mom, who's just the most lovely human being you can imagine. And if you have kids, you can imagine, I had to get a piece of paper that basically said I'm incapable of looking after my child. And that's just a horrific thing to have to get your mum to sign, who was just going through so much and just had such a awful situation going to her, going on. So there was a lot of tears, and still today, one of the worst things I've ever had to do. And then Dad just wouldn't sign the paperwork. So I went to Centrelink. I said, okay, well, I've got Mum signed it, but Dad won't sign it. Like, well, that's too bad because we need both signatures. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? I'm like, can I just forge a signature? Like, who's going to check? They call and they check and they verify, and Dad's going to say no. It's like, great, okay.
What?
We'll just
but if he's kicked you out, why won't he sign?
Because it's a pride thing. He just didn't want to sign. He didn't want to have that situation. He didn't want to feel like, the government's going to, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have to ask him why he wouldn't want to sign it. And then on the flip side, I just said, well, can I just be independent? I don't care how much money I'm getting, to be honest. I just need some money. I'm like burning through my savings fast. And they said, yeah, well, look, we've gone through the paperwork for a dependent. Unfortunately, you don't meet the criteria for a dependent because you're not living with a parent. You're classed as an independent. Welcome to the black hole that is Centrelink. And so now I'm in this limbo stage of nothing, and they don't have to pay me anything. So I had social workers sign documents. I still got these documents that, whenever I have a really shit time, I look back to and remember just how bad things were. Of social workers trying to support my claim to get some money from Centrelink. But Centrelink is where it's just a bureaucratic hole that's designed to pay as little money out as possible. That's really what Centrelink is, because that's what people vote for. And again, government systems, right? No one really wants to say, hey, I want more of my tax dollars to go to Centrelink. It's not a popular platform. So that's what it comes down to.
How did you get yourself out of that situation to then say, I'm going to start this business? Because that's sort of the, cornerstone, or I don't know if it's foundation or a huge milestone in terms of your stories, because you started this SEO business. But if you're homeless, how do you start that and get clients?
That is a great question. And the honest answer is, you'd still, it feels very both weird and normal. So I had been doing SEO since I was 14 at that point. So by no means is this story to say, hey, the solution to the youth homelessness problem is we should just make them all do SEO and tech, because that's just not how that works.
Not a reality.
Not a reality. But when I was 14, I got in the world of SEO because I was really, I was always I was always a nerd, to be honest. I always liked computers. I love computers. I understood them and they understood me. And so I fell in the world of SEO at a young age because it was free. It didn't cost money like paid ads. And we didn't have money. And it was, really quite fun. I found it very creative and logical, and you got to rank different websites. And I started a travel website because I always wanted to travel around and had never really traveled, and started this website. And ultimately what happened was a local company approached me, and I started doing some work there. And so from 14 to 17, I was skipping school to go work at this local company, which I thought was just amazing. And I developed, all sorts of bad habits from that. But that was how I got through. So there's a lot of, if you Google anything, you'll see high school dropout. I had 20% attendance. I finished it. All right. So whenever I get like kids messaging me saying like, how do I drop out of school and do what you did? I say, just finish school. Like, I'm not saying you have to do amazing, but just finish it. And then you can figure out what you want to do from there. So I'd hate to think people are dropping out because they think that that's the way to go about it. But, so that's how I did it. And so coming back to that, so I left that at 17, a few months before I got kicked out. And I had this idea of starting my business. So before I got kicked out, I'd actually spent all the money incorporating the business and did all that stuff. So I already had the business. But when I was homeless, I didn't really do anything on the business. My focus was, how do I get some money? So I was trying to interview for different roles and jobs, and tried to get like a job at even like, hospitality, which I wasn't having much luck with because I didn't have an address. And to be honest, like, you might chat to me now and I'm a lot more extroverted. I can have conversations and do these things. At 17, if you knew me, I was a completely different person. I was completely to myself, an introverted tech guy. I did not interview well. I did not do well in hospitality. I knew SEO, and that was about it. So,
and you're also living under a bridge, and there's a reality of not being able to shower and do laundry and, all that.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I really, at that point in my life, I was fairly convinced that I was going to spend the rest of my life on the streets. And I really just thought, like, the only reason I did the business two reasons, to be honest. Number one, I really hated the woman that kicked me out. That's probably the worst reason. It was revenge, but it was basically like,
No, I love that. That's a great motivation.
I just want to stick it to her because she has this idea that she's going to kick me out, and I'm just going to that's the end of me. And I just don't want to give her that satisfaction, even though unfortunately it's probably the most likely outcome. And then two, I was like, well, shit, what have I got to lose? Like, I literally have nothing to lose. If this business goes south, if everything goes south, who cares? At least I can, it was I almost just kind of thought, well, I can't really get that much pity if I don't try. So at least if I try, then I can kind of pity myself a little bit more. So that was kind of where I was at. I had no semblance of an idea that it would be vaguely successful. And the only reason I really got into it was for that. And I had a great social worker. So there's an organization called St. Vincent's that I'll always shout out, who had, even though I wasn't on Centrelink, they paired me up with a social worker and a therapist. And that was one of the most amazing things that could have happened to me, because I was in a really dark headspace, as you can imagine, when, you don't see any possibilities for you. And having a social worker, that Carly, that, would chat to me, was genuinely interested in me, was trying to help me with the problems that I had. And that was a big, reminder that there's still good in the world. And so she encouraged me to kind of, hey, you should look at this business thing. And she found a partly government program called Getting Down to Business, which you had to apply for. And so we sat down and we applied together for this program, and I got in. And I remember my first day, because they gave me a $20 note to get lunch. And I remember thinking, holy shit, all right, like, we're cooking here. Like, they're giving us lunch here, $20. Damn, this is not a bad gig. But more importantly than that, because I didn't spend the $20, if I'm being 100% honest, I saved that. But they paired me up with one of the most important people in my life today, which is a man called Graham Robertson. And he was a mentor in that program who was the CEO of Tetley Tea and had a lot of experience. And he saw me and he really invested a lot of time into helping me, teaching me about business. I didn't know about business. What does a 17-year-old kid know about business? I knew about SEO. And he was, a retired man that had took his time to kind of sit down with me and explain business and taxes and networking, and took me to a few events. And that's kind of how it all kicked off.
So how are you networking then if you're homeless and unable to shower?
Because I would go get a shower at something like St. Vincent's or something, and then I would go out to these networking events in Fiona. I can't understate it. The grubbiest clothes you can imagine, the grubbiest shoes that were falling apart. But I worked in tech. People just assumed that that's just the tech guy. And so that has got to be the funniest part of the whole story. It almost gave me more credibility because people saw me in these grubby shoes, grubby clothes. They're like, that guy's in tech.
He must be really good. He doesn't leave his desk ever.
100%. And God, that makes me laugh just how the stars aligned for me on that. I mean, if I was in finance, can you imagine how much harder my life would have been?
Yeah.
But, yeah, or a lawyer or something. But yeah, so it didn't matter. Graham taught me how to talk to people because I didn't like talking to people, obviously, and I didn't like it. No one wants to network, even extroverts, right? When you're at the kind of event, you know the events that you like. There's a bunch of people, you don't know them. You're like forcing yourself into conversations. You're introducing yourself. I mean, I don't know many people that like doing that, but I certainly didn't. But again, I was like, what have I got to lose? These people could think I'm the biggest tosser in the world, and frankly, I don't care. And that's how I got started. So I went to every free networking event in Melbourne about 9 years ago. Every single goddamn event. Some of them had free alcohol, which is just amazing. And no one's ID checking the 17-year-old kid. So I wasn't complaining. But it was certainly a weird time in my life. And then over the course of 6 months of doing that, I got a couple of people that were willing to give me a chance, which was amazing. And I worked my ass off with them, blood, sweat, and tears. And as what happened in the business world, it's not really a remarkable story. They started referring me other people they knew. And so they introduced me to a couple of people, and thus the snowball began. All of a sudden, I remember, I'll never forget the date, about a year, maybe 9-10 months, couch surfing, going through all sorts of different horrific stories while couch surfing. September 12th, I was able to get $100 a week together to pay for a share house. And I'll never forget that day. I had nothing really to my name. And I walked into that share house and they were so nice. They were just like, hey, do you want me to help you with bags, move anything? And I was so embarrassed. In fact, I didn't tell anyone at that stage really what was going on. So I told him, no, it's all good. Like, hey, I got stuff coming. I'll figure it out. But I had nothing. And I slept that night on the carpet in the floor of my new room. And I just sobbed because I was so happy. I had 4 walls and a door and I could sleep on that ground. And that moment, I just said to myself, I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. I don't care what. I am just going to keep busting my ass to get there because I only had, 3-4 clients. I thought, and I guess when everything's taken from you, you always think in the back of your mind how everything could be taken again. So I just thought if those guys stop tomorrow, I'm back to where I am. So I just had that extreme push and desire to make it work.
What did your housemates think when you're sleeping on the carpet?
Well, I don't think they really. I was trying to think back. I don't think they really noticed. I think they just assumed I'd blow up bed. I just kind of shut the door, put myself in there, unpacked my bags, and then just like tried to cry as silently as possible because I didn't want them
I
to.
laugh, but it's sad. Like, it is sad, but it's
I
the
don't know,
quiet.
it's just one of those
the
things.
quiet as possible. You know, it's just.
But I just didn't
yeah.
want to. I didn't. It's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing, and even today, if it weren't for certain events that happened, I would never talk about this. And that's, the reality for a lot of people that have had success after being homeless. They don't want to talk about it because there's so much stigma attached to it. And, it's just not, something that you kind of want to tell the people you've just moved in with, hey, I used to be on the streets, because imagine what they're thinking.
Yeah. I think, drugs and they're going to steal stuff. And
drugs,
there
I'm
is
going
a
to steal their
stigma.
shit. And even if they don't say that, they're going to think that. So, I probably wouldn't change it. Like, I kept that very much to myself.
Are you still in contact with them?
My flatmates? No, not really, to be honest. Like, that was a while ago now. They were a bit older. We were never really close either. Like, we weren't like besties. I'm in close contact with Brody, who was one of the guys I used to couch surf with. A lot of stories there, but he's had a rough go of it. But no.
What do you think was the difference between? You talked about you didn't have anything to lose, and you talked about the fact that you really wanted to financially get yourself out of the situation. But what do you think it was that was different compared to others that more so spiral into it's all too hard, and it is hard. Like, your circumstances were hard. I can't imagine even finding an internet connection so you could then do the SEOs is an easy situation, let alone emotionally putting yourself out there to network. What do you think was different? Was it just the pure revenge? I'm going to show this woman that I can make myself and fuck her.
I think I had a skill. I was very lucky. I had a skill. I knew SEO, and without tooting my own horn, I was very good at it. I'd been doing it for years at that point. I was one of the early adopters, and I'd pioneered a lot of techniques and tested a lot of stuff, because when you're a kid, I had nothing else to do than spend 80 hours a week fiddling with SEO. And so I was very lucky that was a skill that I could perform and do and get paid for. So if I didn't have that, what would I do? It's not like I could learn that. I wasn't really in the mindset that if I didn't already know it, would I have learned it? I don't know. I don't know if I was in the headspace to do that. But that was a different thing. And then I got lucky. The stars aligned. I had Carly, who was an incredible person that helped me out. And, without Carly, I never would have found that business program. And then without Graham in the program, I never would have succeeded in starting the company. I mean,
I think you sell yourself short, though, Harry.
The butterfly effect.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you've got to be willing to take those risks and explore those opportunities. I mean, you could have just said, oh, no, it's all too hard.
I mean, sure, I could have just been like, this is all too hard. And I had that thought many times. But, I don't know. It was just a push. I mean, there's nothing quite like trying to get a house to push you to do something, to try and get off the street. I mean, it is a motivator.
Huge motivation.
No other.
When did you know that you had a business to a point where I'm going to bring on other people? Like, what was that click point for you to, I can grow this thing now?
Well, so the first year I made no money. Like, I made just enough to cover my rent. So I think I made probably, I don't know, figures are always fun. Maybe like, I don't know, 15 grand in the year, which, considering I'm networking every day, working, doing all this SEO stuff, I mean, I don't even want to calculate the hourly on that. Horrific. The second year, I probably made about $40,000. The third year, and keep in mind, again, this isn't like as a day job, 9 to 5. I was working with those clients 100 hours a week. I was at home busting ass, making sure, networking, but mostly working on those accounts. third year I made maybe 90, 100 grand. And that's when I ran into a situation where I met another young person that was behind on rent money, had skills, needed a bit of training, but had skills, was behind on rent money, and was going to have to go back to Tasmania. And that was when I kind of said, well, look, dude, if you want to do some work with me, I can give you $20 an hour or something, and I can teach you, and you can kind of help me out a little bit. And I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the idea at all, because I'm like, damn, I'm barely getting by myself, because again, whatever it was, $80K a year, that's also business expense, software subscriptions, all that kind of stuff. Like I had my own place at that point. Like, not that I bought one, but like my own apartment. Because sharing with other people, I've always been, given my past experience, I've always had difficulties with thinking that I'm going to get kicked out or something. Yeah, I didn't like feeling like a burden or baggage, right? Which makes sense now, the story. But I didn't like the idea of having another person depending on me, because I was like, dude, I barely have my own shit figured out. But I did it because I was like, well, otherwise this guy's going to end up, in a shit situation. So once I started doing that, I think there was a big transformation in the business, because all of a sudden it wasn't just me looking after myself. It was this, I've got to not only make enough money to keep a roof above my head, but make enough money for this person to have a roof above their head. And funnily enough, the business exploded, because I think when you do something in life, not to get too deep or philosophical, but when you do something in life that is bigger than just yourself, things start aligning. I don't know why, I don't know how, but things just start happening. And so I had this idea that I would help, this person out and other people out in the future. And I got to work building that.
I have to apologize, Harry, if you can hear my cat snoring in the background.
That's so good. I couldn't, but all good.
So the business exploded. It's interesting, though, that one thing in that story that struck me is the fact that you didn't have the mindset of, well, I've really struggled and I've done it hard and I've scraped myself out. And you didn't have the callous attitude of, it's up to them to do the same thing. You took the attitude of, I have the ability to help this person, because otherwise they're going to be in another terrible situation like I was. And that is a common theme through your story as well, in terms of the generosity of spirit, particularly now with your ambassadorship with the Lighthouse Foundation as well. And I think that is an interesting aspect of the story, because you, doing 100 hours a week, I can't imagine that you would have had much free time to be training this person.
No, I mean, I've never even thought about it that way. I truly never thought, I got mine, you got to get yours. I think it's impossible to think that way, because if I didn't have Carly and Graham, I never would have got mine. So I don't know. I think that anyone that ever says that they're successful because of themselves and only because of themselves is, I think, a liar. I think they're lying to themselves and everyone else. And I think there's always an army of people that support you. And I think it's, in a world, we always play it forward, right? And so I never saw it that way. I always saw it as, it's my job now to help other people, because I've been helped. And so, yeah, that was my mindset.
In terms of scaling the business explodes. You've got one person on. What are your click points in terms of business that you say, for anybody that's wanting to scale a business and start a business, where are your click points in regards to, okay, now I can bring somebody else on? Or do you just have to sort of invest in that person and that time and go, okay, I'm going to get it back?
Well, you have to invest in the first few people you hire. You're going to be training them. Here's what your business is now going to look like. 40 hours a week is going to be them attached to your hip, you showing them everything you do, how you do whatever service, product, whatever you do, whatever their role is, and that's how you do that. Then the other 40 hours a week is where you go home and actually do the job. So that's kind of how I did it. At the 40 hours was showing him, training him, doing all this stuff. And then after work, I would then do more work to make up for the time that I spent training. That's kind of how I did it. Is that the right way to do it? I don't know. I didn't know any other way of doing it. But that's the reality when you're starting up a business. You're very scrappy. So that's what I did. In terms of the threshold and revenue and stuff, I did it when I didn't think about it that way. I never wanted to hire someone. I didn't have the idea to hire someone. It just kind of is something that the universe kind of presented. If I had to do it again, I would try and say, about $100,000. But again, it depends on what your life costs are. And that's why starting a business is really tricky, because you've got to go, if your burn rate's 150 grand a year, you can't hire someone at 100 grand a year because you don't have enough money to cover the burn rate. So it's a very variable answer. I would say you hire someone when you're at 80% capacity, because you've got 20% time to kind of give them a bit of training and stuff. But then you're also going to have to probably do some stuff outside of work.
How important is it to find, and initially when you're hiring those initial people, I think the first person aside, because that was sort of I have to help this person out. But how much is it based on alignment and personality compared to skills for your first few hires compared to now? Like, has that the type of person that you were hiring then changed now that you're at a gazillion dollars a year?
I didn't have money to hire skills. In fact, that's a mistake I see a lot of business owners making. Their first hire, they hire someone from a big business and they think this is going to be amazing because they're a big company. They're going to teach me all what this big company does. You could not be further from the truth. You could not be making a worse decision, because how Studio Hawk operates today versus how the company operated back then, there's not a single process that's the same. There's not a single thing that's the same. There's not a single... It is a completely separately run business. And it's the same as if I tried to run this business as the same way that 1,000, 2,000 person agency would be run. It is completely different. So you can't really take someone that's high up at this company, pay them a lot of money and tell them to, hey, build me another Coles, because that's just not how it works. In fact, you need someone that's quite scrappy and unskilled to kind of do that, and you probably don't have the money to pay someone with all those skills. So for me, it was all about aptitude. For the next few hires, I mean, we hired then, that person was fantastic for a few years, but then they the first few hires sometimes don't always work out, and that was one of them. But then Lawrence and Anthony, who were the two people I hired after that, I mean, that was like a proper interview and hire, but I hired them because of their skills. Anthony is currently the general manager of the UK, and he's just absolutely crushed it. And Lawrence is the general manager of Australia. So that goes to show the caliber of these people. And Lawrence is one of the most skilled people in the whole industry that I'm sure gets recruiters coming to him every day to kind of go into agencies and supercharge them. But when he started with me, we always joke, because we're quite close, I said in the interview, I want to grow you like a tree. And so that's literally what I said to him. And I like to think I did as much as I could.
You've talked previously about the certain click points in business. I think it was five hires, 10 hires, 15, and then getting past the 15 hires. In terms of the first 5, if you're hiring for aptitude, what's the difference between getting over that click point from a business mindset point of view, really? Because it really comes down to a mindset of the founder.
Yeah, I mean, the founder at that point is everything, and it really comes down to your leadership style. My leadership style was I was first to charge in, last to come out, and that was what worked for me. And I would do whatever needed to be done. If there was ever any flack that a staff member called, or there was a hard thing to happen, I was the one that did it. And that's, in my view, what needs to happen. It's not always what does happen, but that's what I think needs to happen in that kind of model. And also you need to invest heavily into training. And so I really trained them until they got to a point where, the next big step is delegating. So till they got to a point where I could comfortably delegate things to them. And then the next step past delegation is management and scale and productization, which are things you need to figure out as a business, where you need to have processes and systems. Now Studio Hawk's a very different beast. I mean, we've got 80 people, and the hiring system is very different. I'm not operationally really involved, but they've got these interviews, and some of the original stuff is kind of kept, like, we ask questions about hardship in our interview process, which is quite uncommon because we want to know people quite intimately. But we certainly hire a lot more for skills now. So we will always have a junior program. To be honest, it's not very profitable. The only reason we really have the junior program, or two reasons, if we're being honest. Number one, Australia doesn't have enough skilled SEO talent for us to rely on that as a strategy as we grow.
This is the Hawk Academy?
Yeah, Studio Hawk Academy. So we can't get enough skilled people in Australia just by hiring. So we have to train them. So yeah, Hawk Academy is something we built, which is a free training platform for anyone to learn SEO. We did that so business owners can learn about it. We did that so that more people, at university and stuff can learn about it too. And hopefully they see us and they're like, hey, that seems like a cool place to work. But the other reason, and the reason why I'll never give it up, is because it gives people a chance. We hire people with zero experience. You can walk in, you don't even know what the hell SEO is. And we will take you in, and we will provide training with learning and development people and modules and everything you need to kind of get on that journey. And, I'm really proud of our progression system. It tells you exactly how to get where, and we know that in 3 years you can be on the 6-figure salary. As someone that walked in tomorrow not knowing what the hell SEO is, in 3 years time you'll be on a 6-figure salary, and I think that's really exciting. And I love hearing about the stories of how that's changed people's lives, and that really keeps me going. So I'm always going to do the junior program, as much as I love hiring experienced people as well.
Why did you never expand outside of the SEO? Because a lot of people now are, more into the video side of things. And to me, as someone that doesn't really understand SEO, I just think Google only. So I don't, you laugh at that. So obviously that's a very narrow mindset of it. So explain to me what really encompasses the SEO aspect of things and why you haven't branched out from that.
Sure. So I worked at a full service company before. We did everything. And we were jack of all trades. Now, I didn't like that because we weren't really exceptional at anything. We were just pretty all right at a few different things. When I started, I always said we're going to be specialists because we're going to be the master of this one thing. We're going to be the best at it. And that was always my mindset. When you have a shower problem, you're not calling the handyman, you're going straight to the plumber, right? You're going to a specialist, because you can't possibly know everything about being an electrician, being a plumber, being a carpenter, being all these things. And that's what digital is now. You can't possibly know all these different services and deliver them effectively. You just can't. And so that was the idea behind it. We would be an inch wide but a mile deep. And as time went on, SEO got deeper and deeper. There's now AI optimization, there's TikTok optimization, there's Reddit optimization, there's entity optimization, there's a million different forms of search optimization. There's digital PR now, there's so much stuff. As an agency, we have 80 people that are mobilized around just providing that, and providing that at a level where I think we're masterful at it. There is no way I can provide an adjacent service and still maintain the level and quality that our clients have come to understand and our staff have come to understand we expect. So that's the reason. And it's a big bet on this idea of specialization, and that, we're in a global economy. As digital becomes more mature, more people realize the benefit of having a specialist rather than a generalist. Because I always think, if you're going to have a generalist, just hire someone in-house. Like, hire someone to be your generalist marketing person. The reason why you would hire an SEO specialist is because it's really expensive to hire someone in-house, and their knowledge is probably going to be obsolete in 12 months. So you're always going to be hiring, and you're not going to have, the benefits that come with an agency. So that's why I never branched out. I think also my motivation was a bit different. Like, I never wanted to, be the most profitable, richest agency in the world. We don't have crazy high margins. We focus more on delivering an exceptional product that we put our name on, rather than being the profitable business that a traditional full service agency would want to be.
The interesting thing about your business structure is that you are hiring direct employees.
Yeah.
You talk about being a global digital market at the moment in terms of how varied even just SEOs are.
Yeah.
What's your take on the SMMA model, where people are doing really freelancers and going out there not understanding, just hiring people, going to businesses and saying, I can do this for you, and then hiring people off Fiverr to do it?
Yeah, I think it's a very disingenuous offering, because it's just, personally, because I think you just kind of, that's often what full service companies do. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a different way of doing business. It's basically just like connecting people up. The problem is, you're never going to have exceptionally skilled talent, because you're not going to be able to train them and incubate them and teach them the exact way you want something to be done. Imagine if all Qantas staff were just freelancers. They got on Upwork, or not Upwork, on Airtasker that day. They're just like, hey guys, this is the process for check-in for these people. Hey, we're looking for 2 pilots on this flight today. You can't have the same level of quality. Take Uber, for instance. Look at how the quality of that has suffered over time. At the start, that product can be amazing, because you're just like, great, I'll just get this person in and sub it in. But because you're not managing, because you're not putting your brand behind it, because you're not training them, because you're not incorporating them as part of a team, it just doesn't work long term. Predominantly, our staff are in Australia and the UK, and we're working on the US. But while, it would be nice for us to just hire people from wherever and do whatever, it is still really important to have that training and community element that we have. And we found that, we weren't able to deliver the same effective training or outcomes when people were siloed off like that. There's a lot of economy of scale that's guarded through having people around people.
When you want to go into and enter into the different marketplace, so you mentioned UK, you're going into and starting up in the US now. How do you get a foothold in those new markets? So if you're going in there and it's not just a matter of setting up an office with some chairs, so to speak, you've got to get your client base over there, and you're not going to be going to the nickel and diming businesses. You're going to be targeting, I would imagine, sort of the sub 10 million initially. What is it? How do you branch into those different markets?
The UK, we started from scratch. I wanted someone incredibly loyal that understood the culture of the business from day dot, and that was Anthony. And I always think, if you're going to send someone to expand, send someone that's going to hurt. Because if they're not going to hurt to lose, why the hell are they going to be the person that the whole company is foundation on?
That's a very interesting mindset. I like it.
I sent Anthony, and that hurt. But look at where we are now in the UK. So he was able to build that from scratch, because he understood Studio Hawk. He understood what made Studio Hawk, the juniors, the hiring, the reason why we just do SEO, all of it. And so he was successful there. The US, I'm looking to acquire something. It just saves time, is the honest answer. It saves time. It took us 3 years to get to £1 million in the UK, which is fine. It's great, actually, but it's just, again, it's 3 years. And if we can buy something, we know our industry, we know how to fix a business in our industry. So we could come in and the idea is we can come in and fix it and supercharge it to the next level. So that's the preference. If that doesn't happen, we'll just do the exact same thing again. We will find someone that hurts to lose. We will send them over and we will replicate what we're doing. We won't go after the same kind of clients we have in Australia. I think that's a mistake. I think people go, oh, we're working with Officeworks and we're working with, I always forget which brands I can and can't say that we work with. So we'll leave it at Officeworks.
XYZ.
But,
XYZ.
Yeah, XYZ and other big brands like that. Because most of our clients, are in those are big brands. Then instead of doing that, we focus on the small, medium brands. So we still do those in Australia. We love doing them. It's just, predominantly we get more enterprise work because of our name and reputation now. But in the US, we want to focus on those small to medium businesses because you don't have the reputation to work with the enterprise clients yet.
One of the things that I think is not talked about enough is how lonely business can be, how lonely being that sole decision maker, having everything fall on your shoulders and really not having anybody within the business that you can truly confide in because at the end of the day, they're employees.
Yeah.
How have you found that aspect of the journey?
Look, I've been an introvert most of my life. I've had a, pretty lonely life at times. So it hasn't been that abnormal to me. I'm maybe a little bit different because I confide a lot in Lawrence and Anthony. We're very, very close outside of business, which is rare that people are able to do that. But in our cases, we have. And so, yeah, I'm a pretty open book about the different challenges I'm facing and what's going on. But also, more realistically, there's groups like Entrepreneurial Organization, which is a not-for-profit group of business owners that are doing over $1 million USD in revenue. And then there's organizations like YPO, which is called Young Presidents Organization, which is for entrepreneurs with businesses valued at over, I think it's 15 million USD in valuation, or maybe 10 million in revenue. I can't remember the exact criteria, but for bigger businesses, essentially. And those are fantastic ways. You chat to other founders, you network with people, and that's why, I'm quite young. I'm 26, but most of my friends, 30, 40, 50s, because we're in similar kind of life stages. And so, yeah, I talk a lot with them. Would I say it's lonely? Sure. At the start, absolutely. Would I say I feel lonely now? Sometimes. Everyone feels lonely sometimes, but I feel like I've got a community of people.
That's good. Are you still in contact with the ex-CEO from Tetley's?
Yeah, Graham. Oh, still on my board today. Yeah, I absolutely love Graham. Yeah, still very much in contact with Graham.
Have you ever thought about the fact that your story mirrors the Rich Dad, Poor Dad story?
You know what? I've never even read that book.
Yeah!
So everyone's told me to read this book. I'm not that big of a book person. I love reading fantasy books.
I'm sure they have audiobook though.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think I read the synopsis of that book somewhere, or maybe someone just told me. I don't know what his story is. Is it similar?
So basically, his dad was his actual biological dad was a school teacher and was an employee focused mindset, and then he had his best mate's dad, who was a business owner and fostered the don't work for a salary and time, build something. So yeah,
interesting.
You're not beholden to that. And so it's interesting in terms of, I sort of see, I don't know, I've forgotten this Tetley's guy's name, so I do apologize, but that's sort of your rich dad, so to speak. Yeah, Graham's sort of your rich dad.
Yeah, I always look to Graham for that kind of guidance and advice. I mean, even now, I look to people all the freaking time. I think if I have one quality, it's that I'm a sponge. I will just learn I love learning things. And so I will chat to people all day, and part of my job is literally traveling the world, and I'm very blessed to be a part of communities like YPO. I can literally reach out to, people I would only dream of catching up with, like Lindsay Fox and these greats, and they will sit down with me and chat to me, and Lindsay will explain property to me because I don't know how property works. And I find that these people are incredibly generous with their time to kind of help, help me.
What would be your recommendation if someone doesn't have that membership? They're not at that level that they're tapping into the YPO, but they don't have sort of the Grahams in their life. How do they access that information and that knowledge from people?
I feel like you just hang around enough of these kind of networking events and associations like that, you will bump into someone that you get along with, or that's willing to kind of help you or has done it before. I think there's genuinely a lot of friendly people out there. I know so many of them. I've been very lucky to bump into them. So I would say networking groups are a great way to do that. And you can come to those for free. I know EO's got an accelerator program, which is for like smaller business. I think that's still like $250,000. But outside of that, I would say, just networking events. You're probably not going to bump into Lindsay Fox. It doesn't matter. You just bump into someone that's gotten to $1 million. The amount of people that have gotten a business to $1 million is a lot. I mean, it's a substantial amount of people that'll be in an event that'll chat to you. Just don't expect them to do anything for you. Like, don't expect them to, I don't know, give you the playbook, because there is no playbook, right?
That's interesting, because I think a lot of people think there is a playbook.
There's
and they
no
want it.
playbook. There's absolutely, like, if you said, Harry, Studio Hawk's gone, I want you to create Hawk Studio tomorrow, and you've got no resources, no connections, what's the playbook? Shit, I don't know. I'd start networking again, but I would say that for any damn business, and that is not the playbook, So there's no clear way of getting anywhere. So you just have to kind of figure things out sometimes.
Was it this year? Last year you stepped down as being CEO from the business?
Late last year. Yeah, late last year. Yeah.
What was the decision for that? Because if you've got a business, it's your baby. Why are you stepping away from running it?
Well, comes a point in every business's life. I
thought you were going to say there comes a point in every parent's life.
Pretty much. There's a great book called Traction and EOS, two great books. And they're basically operating modules for running a business. Very, very good books. A lot of private equity funds are literally, they'll buy companies, implement EOS, and they'll flip it for assets. It talks about this concept of right person, right seat. And a series of roles where you need the right person in the right seat in a business. I have a lot of skills that help Studio Hawk, and I will continue to always do that because I'm not looking to sell the business. But I don't love management. I'm not in my zone of genius when I'm doing management. I don't want to sit down and talk about KPIs. I don't want to sit down and go through any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to build an 80-person business. What the CEO builds, financial forecasts, financial models, going through talent matrices, going through all these different things. And that is their job, and that's what they do. And they're very good at it. And Lawrence, he's general manager. He's sensational at bringing all those departments together and making them all sing together. I was just another cook in the kitchen. And when you're looking at a business, if just like you would get rid of someone that wasn't amazing at their job or wasn't the right person in the right seat, you have to look at yourself and go, am I the right person in the right seat? Or do I just like this seat because it's pretty comfortable and I like being able to call myself the director or the CEO? And I said, well, a bit of a shock to the ego, but a bit of a blow to the ego, I should say. But I don't think I am the best person to do this job. I don't think that I can take this business from $10 million to $50 million in this role. I wouldn't hire myself. to do this. I would sure as hell hire myself to get to 10 million. I was sure as hell put myself on a board to help strategize, even the chair of that board to help the CEO do that, but I wouldn't be the person that does that. So
what was the catalyst though for you to have that conversation with yourself?
It was basically just day-to-day managing the business. I saw things that I didn't want to deal with. I saw things that other people were better at dealing with. And I realized that the business was a completely different business than the business that I was good at being the CEO of. And so, when you're going through that exercise, right people in the right seats, I realized that, actually, what am I doing? I am not suited towards this role in the business. And so it was a very simple decision, to be honest. I mean, it was a shitty decision because it sucks to kind of be like, well, I'm not suited towards this. But at the same token, it allowed me to do things that I was in my zone of genius to do, which is understanding what's happening in the industry, expanding into new markets, getting scrappy into new services and new offerings, and really going deep into almost mystery shopping behind the agency and making sure that vision and that energy is still alive through it. But that doesn't mean I'm good at managing the business. It doesn't mean I need to be good at managing it. I just need to be good at doing the other things.
Was it more the fact that you looked at it and said, I don't have the skill base? Or is it more the fact that you said, I actually don't like managing people and I want to do more fun stuff?
Bit of both. You can't, I don't think, me personally, I certainly am not good at something I don't like doing. That's just how I am.
Yeah.
If I don't like managing people and it's not something I want to spend all my free time learning about and absorbing and doing, I'm not going to be good at it. I'm really good at things because I can spend all my free time absorbing, learning, and doing SEO. I can spend all my free time absorbing, learning, and doing business structures and strategizing partnerships and strategizing expansion and learning different theories of business management and all that stuff. I can spend all my time doing that, and I love doing that, and that's what makes me good at doing that. But I don't want to spend all my time learning about KPIs. So I'm going to have a big disconnect in terms of my skill set there. So it makes way more sense for me, especially in my case when I had a successor that had been working for years to make that step. And the business has grown dramatically, and I think will continue to grow dramatically. And I think in my new role, I'm better suited toward it.
What is your new role? Because I would imagine there'd be a fairly strong existential crisis when you move away from CEO level. And the Gymshark guy did for a while as well. Ben Francis recognized that he didn't have that skill level. How do you then reconcile when your identity is wrapped up with I'm the CEO and I run this business? How do you then step back from that?
Well, look, I don't know if I've fully reconciled with that because I still very much want to be involved in the business, just in a different capacity. So it's still very much a big part of my identity and what I do. And it always will be because, you've heard the story. It's given me everything. It's not something, you don't cast aside your kid when it turns 18 and it doesn't look to you anymore. Likewise, you'll be a bad parent if you're forcing your 18-year-old kid to stay home and never really grow.
Or be on the street.
Or be on the street. So that's why it's kind of like, I don't know. My job now is I look at new markets. I look at, how do we hone our existing services? How do we make sure we're the best at what we do? How do we lead that sector? And how do I look forward in 3 years' time? What issues are we going to have? We're going to have a talent issue if we don't have an academy. I built an academy where there's a massive opportunity in traditional PR to displace that using the new understanding of how entities work in SEO. So I built a service around that and I got people to run that. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was so day-to-day in the business. I have a massive advantage that I can spend a lot of time looking into hunches because I'm at a point now in my life where I really trust my gut. I know my gut's pretty good and my gut's been honed and developed. So I can really look at different offerings, different things happening and leap at them, whether that means I'm in the UK doing a UK business or using that strategically to prop up Australia and talent in Australia that we can use from the UK, or whether I see the US market and I realize there's a massive gap that they are overspending and under-delivering in their SEO. I then go there and figure out what the hell is the United States of America? How the hell do I conquer this market?
Talking about trusting your gut and honing your gut, it's interesting that you talk about it as almost like a skill that you've got to learn. How does one get to the point of trusting that intuition and not getting the head involved and talking yourself out of it?
I just got burnt too many times from my head. Just burnt too many times. And I just realized, it's a famous saying like, go with your gut, not your head, because if you don't trust your gut, you'll always regret it. And honestly, that really is what it was. I've just been burnt too many times going for my head. And I'm just at the point where I'm just like, well, if my gut says so, we're going to go with that, because otherwise I'm going to be pissed off. Whereas at least if I went with my gut and it didn't work out, I was like, well, I went with my gut. And then you look at decisions. I mean, another framework that I love to do is, evaluate decisions. And not the decisions that went badly. Right? Everyone evaluates decisions that went badly. Everyone does that. Pat yourself on the back. Evaluate decisions that went well. Why did that UK expansion go well? Was it because I'm a genius? Was it because I had the right people? Was it because I was there at the right time? Was it because I had the right offering? Was it the right pricing? Was it the right partners? And you start picking that apart. And you do two things there. Number one, you do that when you're successful. But the other thing is, I have already written why I made the decision to go to the US. It's not been successful, it's not been unsuccessful yet. I've already written my reasoning, because humans, we change our reasoning. I look at the UK and I'm like, oh, we were successful because we had Anthony Barone, who was fantastic, and we armed him with an agency and a brand, and we had the guidelines to do all this stuff. But was that the reason I made the decision to go to the UK? No, actually, I wrote down a different reason, and that's why I did that. And so when we evaluate decisions, you've kind of got to look at it when you make the decision. Why did you make that decision? And then what was the actual reason you were successful? And then match the two together. And you might find it's the same, you might find it's different. And then every time it is a little bit different, you hone that down a little bit and you train your intuition.
What was your reasons for going to the UK?
I went to the UK initially because they were the capital of the world in SEO. And I wanted to know, truthfully, if we were going to be great in Australia, because even at the time, without being arrogant, I knew we were on a trajectory to be one of the best, if not the best in Australia. I knew the right things were happening. But I always had this, the UK is leaps and bounds ahead of Australia's SEO industry, or was. Certainly we are catching up. But I wanted to know if we had a good SEO business in Australia, that little island in the middle of nowhere, or if we had potential to be the best in the world. And so I wanted to do that in the UK because why not? And so that was the rationale.
Was it more of a challenge? Like you were challenging yourself to see? Okay.
Everything I do now, Fiona, is mostly a challenge.
It's interesting because that brings me into the business mindset side of things, right? So you could have very much had from your homeless situation a scarcity mindset compared to an abundance mindset, which is now what you've obviously got because you're taking on, you've done the US, done the UK, you're now doing the US. How important was it to align that mindset to what you wanted to do, or did it just sort of come along? You always had it?
Yeah, I've never had to really think about that. Like, I think my mom's always been an incredibly generous and incredibly kind woman. Life didn't always go her way, but I just think that that's the way I would want to live my life. It sounds bad, but I mean, I don't want to be the guy scrapping over for a few bucks here and there, or, screwing someone over to come up on top over a few dollars. It's just not how I wanted to be successful, to do anything. And there was a day and an age where that's what you had to do to make business work. Certainly in this day and age, I think an abundance mindset is way more powerful, creating win-win synergies. And if you read anything out of Harvard or anything like that, they would agree. But I just had that mindset. I had this mindset that, I don't know how to put it into words. Like, I just had this mindset that, to grow, you've got to spend money, you've got to take risks, you've got to do things. It's all a bit of a game. It's all a bit of fun, you know. Once you hit that rock bottom thing on the streets, I think it all just becomes a bit of like, oh wow, I couldn't believe I did that. What's next?
But the thing that's interesting is you talked about initially when you went into the share house that you were scared that it was going to be taken away from you. You know, you were scared that you were going to find yourself homeless again. And so that's what I'm interested with. How did you get from that to now it's all just a game? Was that just Graham's mentorship that sort of helped you along that way?
I think that took years. I think it was probably 2 years ago that I realized that I probably wasn't going to be homeless again. Right? I wasn't going to be homeless again. You know, 2 years ago, we were probably doing almost $6 million. You know, pretty unlikely that I was going to be homeless again. But it wasn't just that made me realize it was just the people I know, the connections I have now. I mean, we look out for each other. I know that if one of my buddies was in that situation, I would open my house to them. I know that all my friends would. And I know that we would line up jobs for them because they've got skills. And worst case scenario, I would get a job, and nothing wrong with that. So, I mean, it took a long time to get in that mindset. I'm certainly not perfect. Like, I do think of things as a challenge now, and I love that. I find that exciting, and I love, you know, not just that, but also creating opportunities for other people. That really excites me. But I'm not as scared, or I'm not running from that situation anymore. And I'll never have that same motivation as I did back then. And that's fine. You know, that's almost like an unhealthy level of motivation. But it's just a different mindset.
Did you ever contact or reconnect with the partner that wanted you out of the house?
No. To be honest, there's still... it's complicated. It's a complicated situation. It's one of those things where, because of what happened, it doesn't matter the amount of therapy that I go through, it's always going to be a very traumatizing part of my life.
Yeah.
It's not something I want to revisit or rekindle.
I just wondered if you had the opportunity to be like, fuck you, I did it, I made it.
You know, it's just at this point, I mean, she knows. How could she not know? And honestly, I think the worst fucking thing that you could do is not even gloat. Don't even...
Didn't even feel like just dropping the Forbes magazine on their doorstep and running away?
Honestly, it's almost more powerful to just keep doing my life. I'm not motivated in any way, shape, or form by her. You know, I think that she did a horrific thing motivated by pure self-interest, and I think that I think that that's just a horrific thing to do, but I don't look at myself now and be like, screw you. None of that. I don't have any of that revenge drive anymore. You know, it's not there. It's more focused on what else I can do and bring my attention towards.
You mentioned that Graham Tetley's ex-CEO taught you how to network, and that was one of the main things in how you started the business. You were very introverted. Don't strike me as introverted now, Harry. What is the main thing that you would say to that main lesson, and what would you say to another introverted person that was needing to get out there and network to build a business?
To another introverted person, man, honestly, it sucks, but you got to suck it up. Like, it is, there's no two ways about it. I'd love to tell you, like, oh, you know, do it at your own pace, whatever. It's like, for me, it was fight or, like, it was do or die, to be honest. It was like, it just wasn't, there was no choice. And I think, like, that's almost the best way to do it. If I had any choice, I certainly would never have done it. I would have just, you know, done it at my computer. I could have just sat in front of my computer for 100 hours comfortably, you know, without ever having to go out. And I still find it exhausting to go out and to do that stuff. It doesn't recharge me, unless it's people I already know. What else could I say? I mean, it's just one of those things, you know, we have a saying, it's like, you know, there's bowls of shit in life, and there's nothing you can do about them. Sometimes you just get a bowl of shit.
Is that going to
And
be the podcast title for this bullshit?
yeah. And all you do is pick up a spoon and start scooping, because sometimes you just have to do things in life that you don't want to do, and that is one of them. And I think that there is a lot of this rhetoric around, don't do things that you don't want to do, or, don't overwork yourself. And the reality of starting a business is pick up a spoon and start eating.
I think it's very much glorified in terms of running a business. How, everyone sees that
very
end,
glorified.
the end, they're all sitting on TV or whatever and sitting there going, oh, this is amazing. I've got this multi-million-dollar business, and you're on Shark Tank. Like there's a lot of
it's great
bowls
when
in
it's
between.
great. It's great when it's great. But then people are like, oh, you work your own hours, be your own boss. I can't imagine what world these people are in, because I've got 80 staff that I'm beholden on, that I am fighting for every day. We have 400 and odd clients that we're delivering work for. How many bosses do I have? I have 480 different bosses, right? I have 480 different people that can affect my life in a tangible way. So, and there's 480 people that are counting on me to do something. And that's for someone that's not even that operationally involved in the business. Lawrence and the team leaders and all the people that make Studio Hawk work have got so many people. A boss is the complete wrong way of looking at it. It's almost like you're almost like a coach. I coach the leadership team. I coach the heads of. I coach hell. I coach anyone in Studio Hawk that wants coaching. I don't think of myself as the boss. I don't even know what would happen if I tried to fire someone. Lawrence would probably be like, dude, piss off. It's not something I think about. But yeah, I think that it is glorified. I've done the Forbes stuff. I've done TV stuff. I host a program called Messy Business, which is where I interview people more about the messy side of business, because I find that way more fascinating than the, wow, look at this guy that's got a great business. He must be so cool. Or they must be so cool. Or, I love Kate because she's got a fantastic story about being on Shark Tank and the other side of Shark Tank. She's a fantastic person. So, I don't know. I just think that it is very glorified. And that's the reason why there's so many migrants or representation from, a lot of people that the people that often start a business are often the people that have been dealt the most bowls of shit, because so used to eating they almost can't stop.
Well, and it's relative, isn't it? Like if you're used to wading through mud, then wading through it to get to something better is not that much of an issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, all adversity is relative. I have people be like, well, I haven't been homeless, or I haven't had anything really that bad happen to me. It's like, you don't need to be homeless or have anything bad happen to you to have a successful business. You just got to think about things differently. That, for me, that was just the trigger point that made me think differently. Because it really broadened my ability to sacrifice, and it really, I guess, awakened my maturity of how the world works.
What do you think is your thinking differently compared to an employee? What, if you had to summarize it, what would you say it is?
Thinking differently compared to an employee. I think I just have this mindset around delegation and win-wins. They're probably the two things I would say. So delegation is, I'm obsessed with the concept that there's someone else that can do my job or do a better job of doing it. I shouldn't be the one doing it. So I should only be doing the things that I'm extraordinary at that nobody else can do. That should be my whole job. And I will mold everything around that, and I will keep finding people that can do the other jobs better than me. So that's delegation. The second part is this win-win mindset. I think we're missing a lot of that nowadays. I guess you call it the abundance mindset. I guess it is that kind of like, how do I create win-wins everywhere? How do I create wins with my staff? People think the business is sitting around thinking about how do you underpay your staff. No, I'm sitting around thinking, how can I pay my staff the most I possibly can while still delivering a great product and a great service and having a stable business? That's what I'm thinking. So how do I create win-wins? And I think a lot of people think that they're so focused on creating wins for themselves that they don't create a win-win. Anything we do is a relationship or a partnership. If you're in a relationship with someone and it's great for you but terrible for them, do you think that's going to work out long term? You've got to focus on the win-win. So yeah, we look at how many win-wins I can create and how many jobs I can delegate out, and then I basically just keep doing that cycle.
It's a very different mindset to sort of a lot of businesses out there that are very profit driven. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're capitalists. We understand there's profits and everyone wants to make money. Profit. Yeah. But in terms of wanting to get the best and have a great employee relationship, I think that is very key. Now you're an industry leader. How hard is retention for you? Because I'm assuming everyone's coming to poach you've talked about how, you said there's not enough people in regards to CEO. That's why you started up the Hawk Academy. So how you keep retaining your staff from a retention point of view?
It's funny. I was so obsessed with being like the Google of SEO that everyone would want, like that we would be the best in industry leaders. I never thought that would mean everyone wants our staff. I mean, that's something that happens when you lead an industry. You know, we have recruiters who hired from other companies and their sole job is give me ex-Studio Hawk people because I know they've been trained well and I know their weapons. That sucks. There's no way to say it. That sucks. You've invested a lot of time and effort into training these people, creating win-win with these people, and then people just go, great, hey, I'll take that. But that's where you have to plan and calculate. We have to train more people and get them in the industry. We need to have career pathways. We need to have handbooks, and we need to engineer what the culture should be. What are our values? How should people live? How do people get promotions? How much of a promotion are they going to get? What are their bands of bonuses? Do they know what their bonuses are going to be? All these things go into designing culture. Culture is great when you're a small company because everyone has good culture. If I speak to 10 businesses, 10 of them have got great culture. If I walk into, I won't name them, but, you can see companies in the news that, don't have great cultures. Yeah. And if you walk in and ask them, do you guys think you have a great culture? We have a fantastic culture at this organization. Culture is by design. It comes from the top, but it also comes how you design it. So we've done a lot of work in designing handbooks. What are the perks? What do people want to see? More so than perks. I mean, who gives a shit about Pizza Friday? It's what is your progression like at this company? What can I expect in 3 years? Where can I grow? What can I do? These are all the things that you need to build out. And one of the advantages of being an industry leader is we've got all that. Instead of being in an SEO company where there might be 2-3 people, we've got 80. So we know exactly what your next step is and what pathway you have and how you can grow and what different things you can work on. Whereas at a 3-person small agency, you simply can't do that because you don't have, we have different levels of junior and mids and seniors and team leaders and operations for them and KPIs and stuff. People don't have that when you're a small business. We didn't. So it's easier now to retain people because other people can't quite offer that. But at the same time, of course, we're always going to lose people. We always need to be getting highly skilled people in. We need to be getting juniors in. But if you look at, I think the best indication of how a company is talking to ex-staff, to ex-employees. In part of our interview process, if people say, if you're interviewing, you're like, hey, I want to speak to an ex-staff member. Well, happily, you can chat to them. They say wonderful things, and that's why our reputation is really good in the industry.
Is that how you measure it? How do you measure culture? Is it just your retention?
As an objective measure, it's retention and staff feedback, a lot of surveys. So a lot of surveys, but at the end of the day, one thing it comes down to is retention. People can say the best things in the world on a survey, but if everyone's leaving, that's hard though, because it might not just be a culture thing. It might just be like the market shifted or changed or circumstances or whatever. But yeah, the combination of like retention and the feedback you're getting in an organization.
So if you're going into the US and your prime objective is to purchase an existing business, how do you then carry and transition that culture over to the new business without a retention issue?
Well, you're still going to have to send someone. Fortunately, there's no two ways about it. You have to send someone that's going to hurt. And they're going to assume control of that and transition that business into mirroring the values and culture you want. And that's a hard job. But that's what will need to happen regardless. I don't think you can just buy something and I can do a 1-hour seminar in the States about, hey guys, I'm Harry. I'm the founder. I just bought you guys as the business. These are the culture. These are the rules you guys have got to follow to be Studio Hawk Hawks. And thank you very much. That's not going to work. You have to live and breathe there, and have someone that understands why Studio Hawk is Studio Hawk.
When you get to your level of success as an individual, how do you then assess the genuine people that come into your lives? I'm not sure if you're in a relationship, but in terms of friendships and business, and how do you then know who is a genuine individual?
It's a question I get a lot, and it's genuinely something.
No, I thought I was going to be original with that kind of question, Harry.
It's a question that
I just thought of it.
I honestly haven't run into that many bad people. Of course there's bad people. Of course there is. But you just kind of get a gut feel. I mean, I've been friends with my group of friends since, I had nothing. They give me so much shit and they assume that everyone is just blowing smoke up my ass. I truthfully, Fiona, I don't have many people that blow smoke up my ass. I probably need a few, actually, because I am more interested in the raw and real. I'm interested in my flaws so I can improve them and fix them. But yeah, most of the people I meet, I meet a lot of founders. I meet a lot of CEOs. I'm single. I'm not in a relationship, but that's more two reasons. One of it, I travel all the time. It's going to be really hard to be in a relationship and be focused on the challenges that I want to be focused on around youth homelessness and expanding this business, and focus on being a good partner to someone. It's a lot to juggle. But also because it's, I'm young. I'm 26. There's not that many, people that I want to date that have been through that life journey yet, is the honest truth of it. I mean, I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but for years I used to look at the Forbes 30 under 30 list and try and find a woman that's done really well that I might connect with and then, experience. It just doesn't work like that. And there's very few people that, are in Melbourne on a 30 under 30 list, around Australia on a 30 under 30 list, that have kind of done that.
Is that because you're trying to match a mindset?
Yeah,
rather
but
than
I've given up on
genuine...
that, believe me. I'm not trying to find... I don't think I'll date another entrepreneur now. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But
Damn it, that's now a question that I want to bloody...
No. I think I need to date someone that's in a different field. I think I'm just too competitive of a person.
Right.
To kind of to do that, and maybe it brings out the best in both of us. I don't know. I'm not here for my dating advice. Believe me, you don't want to listen to my dating advice. But
I'll give it. Yeah, I'll give it, Harry. I'll give you dating advice. Don't worry about it.
I think people in general. I haven't run into many people that I feel like have exploited my position, and also it's weird, but you don't end up in circles with people like that. And yeah, I get a lot of people that ask me for advice on things. I wouldn't say that's exploiting me. I'm happy to give up my connections for friends wherever they need. I don't think that's exploiting me. But I don't remember the last time someone asked me for money. One of my friends, they just know that that's a murky territory and we just don't go there.
Do you think that keeping those friends that are around you, you said that you don't have anyone that blows smoke. Do you think that that's been a key attribute to the fact that you have really had a critical look in regards to your skill set and be able to step back and look at your weaknesses rather than have I'm the best, I'm amazing, I've built this business and therefore I can do it all.
Yeah, maybe. Absolutely. Like, I'm very open to feedback, sometimes too open to feedback and going through and improving things. But I also just don't tend to, I'm not a words of affirmation person at all. I'm not, I never have been, I never will be. When people tell me nice things, as bad as it is, it's not a good trait, but like, and it flows off like water off a duck's back, you know, it doesn't, I don't take it to heart or anything like that. So yeah, as a result, it's, it's not, I don't surround myself with people that are always saying nice things because I feel uncomfortable.
If you're now moving to, well, not you personally moving to the US, but the business is moving to the US, you're still growing Australia and the UK. What does life look like for Harry? Because in terms of your structuring, you obviously want to have some downtime. You're very involved with Lighthouse. How do you structure your day to get everything done?
How do I structure my day?
Have a good EA.
Yeah, I've got a great EA.
Shout out, Claire.
I've got a good calendar system, a good email system that I've tailored that work for me. I'm obsessive on my emails, obsessive on my calendar. And I'm always just kind of, I look at projects. So I kind of focus on a few buckets at a time. Right now I'm focused on the US. I'm focused on a couple other secret projects as well. But, and so I kind of just focus my attention on those things, and then other things get delegated back to, again, delegation back to people that are responsible for those different departments. And I just kind of have that more focus about where I'm heading. I can't do everything. I would love to help a lot of different causes in a lot of different places, but I'm focused on being an ambassador for Lighthouse. I'm focused on youth homelessness. You know, I can't bite off homelessness as an issue. I can't do breast cancer, which is another fantastic cause. Yeah, we have to pick our battles, and I pick my battles about what I can focus my time to, because again, this idea of specialization and discipline, it's almost more important to say no than it is to say yes at a stage where I am. A million opportunities a day. There's only so many I can say yes to, and the others I unfortunately have to say no to because I'm not the best person, or it's not aligned, or a million different reasons. So that's kind of the, you know, how I go about things day to day. There's a lot of things that simply don't align because of my travel schedule or because of whatever, but that's just how it is.
For someone that's just starting out, that has a concept and a business idea, what's your main advice for them?
Don't do it for money. Do it because you genuinely have a passion for it or think there's a gap in the market for it. I mean, the people that do things for money, it just, you get so jaded when you start a business and it takes years to make money, and you realize there's way easier ways to make money than to start a business. You can get crazy concept, but you can work 9 to 5 and get guaranteed money, and work is protection by working for someone else. And it's crazy because it goes up every year, and you know, a lot of jobs you just have to do your 9 to 5 and you don't have to bring it home. You don't have to wake up at 2 a.m. thinking about systems or getting on a call at 3 a.m. with London. Some jobs, sure, but a lot of jobs you don't. So eventually, when you're not making as much money as your peers that are doing that are just coasting along, it can be really hard to swallow the pill of I've done a business. But if you have this passion and this drive, or you're not suited to being a employee, then yeah, maybe it is right for you. But please find something that has got a gap in the market. I mean, there's a million digital marketing companies, but could you be a specialist? We were a specialist. You know, there's a million companies every day. I mean, we need more building businesses. There's a massive opportunity there. We need more retirement villages. We need more people in those industries, you know. Sexy. I mean, the other thing I'd say is the sexier the business, the less likely you are to be successful. You want a tech SaaS company? Great. So does a million people. The most successful people I found in the most unsexy or boring businesses. You know, I meet people that are, you know, I chat to them, like, oh, what do you do? And they're like, oh, we make chairs for NDIS programs. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a business. $1 billion business. They make furniture for NDIS approved, organizations, healthcare, retirement villages. That's a massive business. You've never heard of their business. They're a billionaire. So it's finding a problem rather than manufacturing one.
Thanks, Harry.
Thank you.
The One Moment Please podcast.
Yeah,